Hi, I have a quick announcement before we dive into today's episode. I've opened a few new spots for my 90-day program called the Inner Oasis, designed to help high-achieving women who are stuck in chronic stress and burnout to retrain their nervous system so that calm, sleep, and balance become their default, not a temporary break. I will be using a unique blend of sound healing, energy healing, and journaling. So if this is something you want support with, you can book a call at www.inneroasis.org or use the link in the description to get your personal 90-day recovery plan for free. Now, let's get into today's episode with my next guest. Hi, Megan. Thank you for coming to Align and Thriving. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy, that we're going to talk today. We have a lot in common. And so to start, you are a coach, you empower women who had complex trauma. So we're going to talk about that. And I guess to be a coach, you have to learn or to live yourself what you're going to teach.
That's right.
Do you want to explain to us how you arrived to that career? Because you didn't start as a coach, you were working
No, I will
in
happy
banking.
to. Yeah. Yeah, well, you mentioned, chronic trauma, which,
Yeah,
for me started at birth. I caught an infection, during delivery that ended up wreaking havoc on my little body and causing lifelong, disability and trauma and many surgeries that are still piling up today. Some pretty severe. I ended up having to have my arms surgically lengthened when I was younger. It's
really?
wild, wild stuff. Yes.
Oh, I you could do that. Wow.
I know. So, yeah, like feels a little sci-fi-ish. I've had, my hip replaced. I had to have a leg shortened. Like all my joints were total chaos, which led to just a lifetime of both pain, but then also feeling really bad about my body. And then along with that, I had a teenage mom who eventually married my dad, who was an alcoholic and verbally abusive to her. So, as the oldest daughter, very much took it upon my shoulders, even as young as 6, 7 years old, feeling like I was the protector of my mom and my little brothers. And so, with that, I developed some really severe coping mechanisms and of just pure survival. So, for me, I grew up learning to be a perfectionist, a people pleaser, hiding my pain. I drank alcohol at a very young age and really kind of was in a spiral on and off again until my early 30s. And right alongside that spiral, I did manage to be, a very successful person. I got my degree in psychology. I ended up going on to a very successful career in adult education. And so, very much, I think, I wouldn't have had the words for it, but I very much think that my childhood made me so curious about probably how to fix myself. I very much felt like such a broken person, and so I had this deep curiosity of how to solve that and how to fix myself, which over time grew within me a deep curiosity about other people too, and other people who have pain in their life, people that are perpetual victims in their life and constantly just, messing up their own life, and then looking at people that are able to turn it around. How could you have all of this pain and hurt in your background, yet somehow heal yourself and learn to love yourself? And so for me, I was able to do that over time. And after, many years in corporate America, about a year ago, I finally got that deep nudge from the universe that was like, it's time that you do something different and you bring your gifts for helping others and you bring your story to the world. And so that launched my podcast and my coaching business. I got my coaching certification, which is a mix of grounding on my psychology degree that I got all those years ago, but then taking my adult education focus and now pairing that with coaching practices and really bringing that all together to now help other women who have messy journeys like I've had.
I mean, your journey sounds so familiar. Some of my listeners already know, I had also a teen mom. And sometimes you look at, when you're growing up, you look at their messy lives and you're like,
Yeah, oh, right?
I don't want to do that. This is not what
Yes,
I don't want to do. I don't want to be that. And maybe that's why after you become very successful, because,
yes.
you take some example, you're like, okay, I'm going to do something different. And like had a very good career, went to school, had, all my degrees and stuff. And like you, I started a podcast a few years ago.
Yep, yep, that's right. Here we are.
I was working in corporate. And then this year I had something from universe saying, you don't want to go back to corporate. You need to have people also about who are very stressed out and who are depressed. And I started like a sound healing training. And I'm a sound healer and Reiki
Yes,
practitioner. It's really different from what I was doing
of
before.
course.
And
Yes,
like you, I think it's real calling. It was about time,
yeah.
it happens.
It's a calling, and it's
Yeah.
not it's not the easiest path, it's not the
It's not.
most
Yeah.
it's not the most standard path, yet when your inner knowing knows what to do, you can't ignore it. So,
Hmm.
here we are, and I very much feel like this point in time is a special moment for people like you and I. I very much think we're in, like, this transition period where in the next 2 years, I think that something has to shift in our definitely in the United States, I would argue the world, where there's a big gap of people not loving themselves. I think
I know.
so much of the hurt we're seeing in our country is because people with trauma backgrounds and people that have mental illness, and so many other disorders, have never learned how to love themselves. And I think right now is there's going to be more and more people like you and I coming to the forefront to help improve that.
And it can take a while. Like you, it took me when I was in my 30s, be like, okay, I deserve better.
Yes,
So
that's what it was.
yeah.
That was the feeling for me. It came when I was a new mom. I
Mm,
had
yeah.
fertility, struggles, once again, my body failed me. That's just been such a struggle in my life, is so many things my body, felt like it was a failure, and, so I had years of fertility struggles, but then when I finally had my daughter, she was a premature 4-pound, 8-ounce little girl, and holding her in my arms, nursing her late at night was the very first time I heard the deepest knowing whisper that I don't think I'd ever heard before, except to tell me I was meant to be a mom. That was the only voice in my head that has been there since I was a little girl, just knowing that I was meant to be a mom. And now that I was a mom, I was nursing her late at night, and I was in a bad, unhealthy marriage to a man who was very similar to my, verbally abusive dad. So another, not really much of a surprise there, kind of a cliche that I married somebody just like my dad. But here I was with my daughter, and I got that little inner knowing that said, "You deserve better. You deserve better, and your daughter deserves better, and you need to change." And of course, I didn't know how. I didn't know what that meant, but that did spark a journey that now is my 7 competencies for my coaching framework. It's like the exact steps that I use to leave that marriage are the exact ones that I now use to coach other people.
It's unbelievable. Same thing for me.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
see,
started
isn't it
living with a
crazy?
man that
Yes.
was exactly like my stepdad that I didn't like. And I ended
Yeah.
up with the same man than him.
Right?
And
Yeah.
also had fertility issues. It's like,
Yes,
some story.
yes, it's so many of us similar, but then it's like, I find that then I would bet once you and I dig in, I would bet the steps that we use to heal ourselves are very similar. We may just use different words for them, and that's what I've come to learn doing podcasts like yours, and hosting guests on my own podcast, is that those of us on a healing journey, we very much we arrive at the same place somehow. And so, I mean, somehow I know we're connected in some bigger way,
Yeah.
because somehow we end up getting the same lessons. We just end up using a different way. We use our own language to describe it.
Well, I think you did thinking, okay, that is exactly what I did too. Uh, to practicing meditation, spirituality, the law of attraction. A lot of people
Yes.
do. And so that helped you a lot. to get rid of your trauma and, to maybe get and step in your personal power?
That's it.
All of
That's it.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that stillness, I mean, really, I always say for me, that tapping into that inner voice is the step 1 to my framework, and if that's the only thing that people can do, if, if you wanted to start somewhere, just learning how to know the difference between your deepest knowing, that inner voice that is telling you and guiding you versus your inner critic which is keeping you small and holding you down. If you could just figure out the difference between those 2 and only listen to your powerful inner voice, the steps are gonna come for you to have an abundant and healed life.
yeah. And that's the hardest thing to do, right? Because we have so many things going on during the day. If you just calm
Yes.
down and don't do
Yes.
anything for 2 minutes to meditate, you can hear that inner voice, right?
My gosh, and that inner so many of us, for those of us, especially with chronic trauma backgrounds, or just all women, because I would
Yeah,
argue that just our society, that women in general have trauma in their background, just collectively, and I would add, people of color even more so. So, I feel like if you add on, anything that's viewed in our society as other I feel like there's collective trauma somewhere in that, but I'd say all of us that have trauma in our backgrounds, our inner critic is so loud. We just we don't love ourselves. We don't know how to. We think so little of ourselves, and in return, we set the bar on how other people treat us. We set the bar on how the world treats us, and so to me, this is the most important work that all of us can do.
that's true. Especially when you have kids.
Yes, I have three teenagers, and just for me, it's modeling for them, this my owning my messy path and owning this story, so they don't walk in some of those messy shoes that I did. But when they do have things that hurt or when they hurt others, I want them to have the tools
Exactly.
to be able to own their truth, not keep secrets, be able to confront the things in them that feel broken, and have a language to be able to talk openly and not feel shame and kind of spend their whole life just thinking something's wrong with them, but never even giving kind of the chance to speak what it is they feel so different about. Because when they do, they'll realize that we're all broken in some ways.
I know. So when you mentioned earlier that you realized when you had your daughter, um, I'm sorry, that something had to change. Is
Yeah.
it because you mentioned feeling like a passenger in your own life
Yes.
for many
Oh,
years?
very much. Yes.
So was it
I
that the,
felt
that the turning
that's
point?
what it was.
Yeah.
I felt well, what did you say? I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
No, I was saying, was it the turning point that had to
That
step?
was the turning point? It was the turning point, but, for your listeners, who may have a similar turning point, it certainly was not an overnight turning point.
Okay,
It was a spark that started me on a path, so it's kind of like I got that first feeling, and I knew it in my gut I had to do better. For for me, I never really had a modeling of a healthy marriage. So at first, I just looked at my marriage and I thought, well, I guess this is what marriage is. It's like, well, this is what I signed up for, I guess this is it. But that little voice kept, nagging at me, nagging at me, nagging at me. And then the universe started kind of sending in other things to help me, listen. And it just kind of kept louder and louder. And one of the things that it set on my path, it started good or bad, it started sending, really good-looking men
oh,
who, who
lucky you.
started yeah, right? They'd start showing up, and it's like, here I was married, and in my house, I felt like a ghost. I felt like so less. My ex-husband, he didn't wanna hear any of my backstories, and listen to me, I mean, I'm a talker. I wanna talk through all of my pain, and when I would talk about my pain, he would say, "Ugh, it's gross." Like, "I don't wanna hear this," like, "You're gross, and so I was so quiet and small in my house, and yet out in the world, I was thriving. My career was taking off, I was respected, and I was known in my industry, and when I would travel for work, I started having men on almost every trip would come up to me and they'd say, "Do I think we have a connection." That was
Oh,
always the line, "Hey, I think we have a connection." And I started at first, I'd kind of like play with that a little bit, and just be like, "Well, I'm married," but
yeah.
but inside that felt really good. Inside to have like a good-looking man see me and like, and when I felt so like little in my house, like this started, kind of sparking like a little bit of my confidence and started feeling good. And, eventually I did end up having a few affairs. I did end up, and I started wondering, could I just have a double life? And, when I told my husband I wanted a divorce, he said, "No, I don't care if you're happy or not. We're not going to get divorced. This is best for our daughter. So whatever. This is what we're doing." And I really thought that for some reason I thought I needed his permission, and
Yeah.
I've heard from other friends that this is true, where it's so easy. People that haven't been in this situation will say, "Well, why didn't you just leave?"
Mhm.
And after having no self-confidence, after being verbally abused for years, yeah, when he told me no, I really thought I needed his permission. And I didn't have the courage to fight it. And, he would talk about taking my daughter, and that was like my one fear. And so I tried to have a double life for a little while where I was just out on the road, pretend I was single. And then at home, I'd be a wife and a mom. And very quickly, double lives catch up with you.
So
And
complicated, right?
that just
Mhm.
crushed my soul even more. So,
Yeah.
the universe over time taught me the needed lessons over time, to realize that wasn't going to be the forever path.
So how long did it take you to leave the bad marriage?
It took me, from when I first had that whisper, when I was nursing her, until the day I was divorced was 3 years.
Okay, not too bad because I have friends they stay like 3 to 4 years. Yeah, almost the same, like
Yeah, I mean, it's
sleeping on the
similar.
couch.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not easy to leave your husband. It's not easy.
No, 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 especially when they're a controlling personality who you
Hmm.
kind of treat as, like, your boss. Like, it's I know not everybody understands that, but looking back, that's the place I was in.
And sometimes I think, I mean, some of my friends also they don't want to just tell everybody I failed, so they just stay in the marriage just for people. And sometimes I tell them nobody cares, just live your life because when you got a
Right.
divorce, everybody's gonna move on from this. So don't stay in
Yes.
a bad marriage for people.
Right.
Nobody cares that much.
Right.
But earlier you mentioned perfectionist, so it made me think that some people they struggle sometimes the trauma because they want also they have those pattern of perfectionism or seeking love through performance. Do you know how to break those patterns because you went through that yourself? How to break those patterns? What tool did you use?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really my framework is 7 competencies that are essentially helping to break those patterns, and so we've talked about some of them, but I'll just say it real quick. It's called the imperfect level up, and level up is an acronym, and so what it stands for, and then these are essentially the steps and the tools, is let your inner voice lead, which we've been talking about, explore your childhood as an observer. And so for me, when I started kind of having those experiences with men and I was still married, behind my husband's back, I started seeing a therapist. And so I do feel like some form of therapy is a really good step for those of us with trauma backgrounds, for you to be able to learn how to look at your past and not feel shame. Also, another tip for this one is it came for me by just being a mom and seeing my daughter at the ages that I was when bad things happened to me or I did bad things. And it helped me really forgive myself. And so I would just say, even if you can't go to therapy, but if you want to start thinking about your childhood in a healthier way, think of yourself as the child in your life that you love. It could be a nephew or a niece. It doesn't have to be your own kid, but I feel like if you can start treating your own inner child how you treat children, it's really powerful tool. The next step is value the lesson, even the messy ones. And this is really how I started looking at my affairs and my alcohol abuse and started looking at a pattern. And so being able to look at the bad patterns in your life, the things that you do to self-sabotage and start identifying a pattern, and you can start learning then why that's happening. What is that trying to teach me? Instead of shaming yourself and saying, "Gosh, I'm such a bad person for doing this," flip it and ask, "What is this teaching me?" And when you start digging into that, you're gonna start gaining lessons to bring forward. And the next one is embrace the magic of the universe. When you start doing these other things, the signs, they for me, they just started coming. It's like the hard part was up front, maybe not the most fun stuff going through therapy and going through my childhood and finding the lessons of my mess. But all of a sudden, when I did that work, the universe met me and I started seeing signs. And then I started learning about the universe, reading the book The Secret. Celestine Prophecy for me was like a huge turning point. So I very much recommend that one. But just taking a moment and educating yourself on spirituality and just giving it a try. All of this stuff is like, it might take a little bit of a leap because you might not be somebody that believes in some of this stuff, but just start learning a little bit about it. And then the next few, I'll round out my steps, lean into your unique healing needs. The work that I do is not like a one and done. It's not like you do these things and all of a sudden you are like forever healed and you never have to do them again. One for me that I am constantly having to recircle back on is checking in with my body and researching new healing methods. And so, you know, therapy was really good for years for me, but now this year for me, it's really been a focus on my nervous system. And so going to healers like yourself,
I
doing
was
a
gonna say,
body work.
I was gonna
Yeah, I
say, yeah.
mean, that's right. So
Mm.
it's doing body work and it's, both on my own learning tools, somatic experiencing to heal my own, to focus on my own nervous system, but then actually going to practitioners that can help me too. And then the last two, you is unapologetically love yourself. This is when you can start telling one trusted person some of the shame from your past. Just get to a point where you could talk openly about your whole story, and that is gonna help you kind of heal that love for yourself, and then the very last one is P, pass it on, and it's as you rise your vibration by doing this work, you are gonna be contagious to the people in your circle, and slowly you're gonna help them go through these same steps, and then collectively, you're gonna contribute to this rise.
Well, I love the acronym and all the step that you put it in there. So that's your program. That's
That's
what
my
you
program.
that's
Yep,
the
so
program, right?
that was the level up. So yep, 7 competencies, and so for those, it's like at any point in life, you're probably needing to focus on some of them. Again, it's not like you're gonna learn them and you're gonna perfect them and then life's gonna be smooth sailing, but by focusing and strengthening these, you're gonna be able to ride with the curveballs that come at you, and you're gonna be able to kind of get through them with a little bit more ease. They're not gonna set you back years anymore. You're gonna be able to kind of go up and down with life a little bit more smoothly.
So you work closely with women who have experienced chronic trauma. What are some of the common challenges they face when they begin their healing journey?
Yeah, I think it's self-sabotage,
This one
is,
is always there. This one.
I mean, that is I would say that's
Yes.
top of that's it, you know? Um, I find personal relationships are usually a big challenge. I feel like, there's something for those of us with trauma that so many of us are perfectionists, and so we are very much high functioning in a professional setting. However, we're burnt out, so many women in this situation because they're people pleasers and you're going against that inner knowing. So you're delivering. I also think for women in particular, so many of us, we are performing in a man world. And so we have faked how strong our masculine side is. And so really I feel like this process for women is about coming back to their feminine and realizing that they can thrive by being their strong self. You don't have to be like somebody else's strong. You can figure out what your own strong is, and when you do, it's gonna alleviate you're not gonna feel burnt out anymore. When I'm doing this work, it's work still, and there's some days where I'm in flow and I'm busy, and by the end of the day, I might be tired, but it's not burnt out. It's kind of tired by my passion and tired, like, I could talk about this stuff all day, and it's a different kind of tired.
Yeah. And I think sometimes perfectionism, because this is the one thing you can control, is when you got all the trauma, you couldn't do anything about it. But when you try to be perfect in everything else, your work or at home or whatever, you can control the situation and it makes you feel better. But at the end, it's
Yes.
not good for your nervous system. That's not good to try to, because you cannot control everything in your life.
Yes, that's
So
right. I think you're spot on with the nervous system is, like, so many of the things that we're talking about, when you haven't healed yet is your nervous system, but for so many of us, we don't know what it feels like to have a healthy nervous system. And so, it's almost like we thrive on kind of running and being exhausted, and it's like that's what we know as our normal. And when you start doing this work, it feels like almost a little bit shameful to rest, to not be grinding, to honor what your body is asking for in any minute and truly giving your body what it needs. For many of us, that feels so foreign.
when you talk about different state, that is one is really hard for me. Forgiveness.
Yeah.
So this is different step you have to take about forgiveness. You
Yes.
talk about grief, letting go, that big
Yep.
theme, in your story also.
Yes.
So how are you able to do all of this? And I guess this is what you recommend also in your program for somebody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, I don't believe there are any negative feelings. And so for the work that I do and from my own experience, it's honoring whatever your body is saying and just letting those feelings come through you. And so as you do this work, it's funny, I was in a somatic experiencing class earlier this year, and it was a group class, and I wasn't the teacher. There was I'm not a practitioner of that. I was attending that class, but the woman there that was leading us through the exercises in, like, the first 2 classes, you know, some of the people in the class were getting frustrated and a little angry, and they were saying, "Oh, this is making me feel worse." It's like, "I'm here to feel better. This is making me feel worse." And I do think that that's part of going through a healing journey is having to feel all of the feelings. For me, I numbed with alcohol and men. I numbed. That was ways for me to hide that pain and make myself feel better in a fake way, very much like drugs are for a drug addict. I had other things that numbed my body. And so when you're going through a healing, you're having to get rid of that numbing and you have to let the feelings come, and that can feel hard at first, but over time, we're especially working with a coach, because for some of this, doing it alone can be scary and you might give up. Whereas if you could have a coach like me to help be with you and hold space and remind you that in this moment you're safe and remind you that in this very moment, if you think about the outside world in your life, it's all okay. Like just because you're feeling grief in this moment doesn't mean the external world around you is crumbling. And as you really sit with those feelings, you realize they'll come and go as your body needs them to. You're not going to feel that way forever. You're going to be able to work through it, honor it. I think for me, it's like when you try to avoid those feelings, they linger even longer. If
That's
you
true.
just honor them and you just thank them for coming and recognize they serve a purpose, feel grateful that your body is doing what it needs to, and ask what it's teaching you. As you do that, you then release those feelings from your body, and your body just thanks you for that.
Yeah, sorry, I had a guest a few weeks ago who was saying that in our society, especially in America, we don't take the time to mourn, really, to acknowledge our pain and to be in the pain, and we just want to be better, better, quick and fast. And it's
Yes.
like, no, you need to actually feel it, acknowledge your grief, mourn it, and then move on from that. But you need to take the time to actually feel what you're feeling. And that's really important.
What I find is, and you had asked, how we help other people that maybe, don't know how to do that. What I find is, people will sometimes be skeptics and they'll push against what we're talking about and they'll say, well, I can't take that time. Well, the more you do that, the universe is going to make you take that time. The universe isn't going away. Your body's not going away with what is best for you. And so for me, what that looked like, multiple times in my life, two severe times where leaving my marriage the first time and then leaving a long job, for months, actually for my marriage, it was years, I ignored that inner voice. Well, then my body I started getting sick. I've had, many, illnesses. I have an autoimmune disease, which I very much think is because I held in all these feelings. And then over time, both times I ended up having bad falls where I hit my head
Mm.
because I was like running it's like my adrenaline was up so much and I was trying to do all these things. And I so believe it's the Maya Angelou and Oprah message that the universe speaks to us in whispers and it gets louder and louder until it hits you over the head. It literally has happened to me twice. So now when I start seeing the signs, when I start seeing that, hey, I'm getting colds and flus more often, or I'm not wanting to get out of bed, or I'm dreading going to work the next day, that those are signs that my body is telling me that something has to change. And I'm gonna listen before I have another head injury.
So I was going to ask you now, you, what, why you're here and you feel much better and you have this new career, you're helping people. Do you feel better physically? Is your health better now?
Yes, my health is the best it's been
Oh, so happy for
In
you.
in my lifetime. I mean, I am just in yes, I was, my medicine for my autoimmune disease, and it took kind of some of these breaks for me to fight for myself and actually get diagnosed and be treated properly. And yeah, so I also have polycystic ovary syndrome, and so it's like by listening to my body and doing the healing work helped me also advocate for the treatments I needed and so medically and then also I went to my husband a year ago and said, work is burning me out. I'm seeing the signs coming that I need to do something, and I've been grinding my whole life. And my body is saying I need a break from like traditional work. And I want to just write and focus on my coaching, and he supported me. And I have to say, a strong partner for those of us, I mean, for anybody in life, but especially with those of us with trauma backgrounds, to find a partner who recognizes and honors that background and provides some peace and calm. I think it's one of the biggest healing decisions we can make is in the partner we choose.
People are well amazed, how my husband just agree with every crazy idea that come to my mind.
Yeah. Right? He knows. He's seen the proof, right? He's
He's,
like, hey,
I know he's very supportive. And the last one was, oh, I want to become a sun eater now. Okay.
yeah, it's so true. He keeps seeing the proof. I've
Yeah.
been working on writing my memoir now, my book I
Interesting.
started 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And in the last and because he supported me this year and I have had this chance to really focus on my healing and my coaching practice, I just finished it this week. I just printed the
Really?
books today. Yeah.
Oh. So you're
So
gonna have
this
to come back
morning
for the book now.
Yes, yes. So, yes, I'm just starting, but I printed out, I'm going to Mexico on Friday to celebrate with my best friend, and I'm gonna bring
Nice.
her a copy, and then my husband, I'll leave him a copy so they can be the first 2 to read it, and then I'll start kinda looking for publishing and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's stuff like that where when you have a partner who can support you, and you go through a journey like this, and you're actually focused on trying to know your inner self, your gifts really come out and come together. Like it's been very magical this season. I feel like I've gone through my own level up I'm at like a different frequency right now. Like there's just so many
Yeah.
creative things coming my way.
You said the magic word frequency. Exactly.
Yes.
It's funny
Yes. I mean,
because
it's true.
Yeah, I always wanted to write a book, so but that's something that it takes so much time. But I have so
Yeah.
many ideas. I know
Oh,
what.
yeah, I'm happy. We'll talk offline sometime. I'll share my process with you. It was
Yeah,
really
please.
helped. Yeah, yeah. Yes, but I agree with frequency. I mean, I think that, the things that we're talking about, people always ask, "Well, where do I start?" Like, like I shared with you, I have 7 competencies. Maybe that sounds daunting. It's like, "Oh gosh, how do I do all these things?" But I think that it's listening to that inner voice and focusing on your own frequency. If you just do those things, for me, it's for the last year, I love music. I love, just putting on music that raises my frequency, taking long showers so I can get all of that kind of inner thoughts through. It's just doing the things to keep me calm, but also keep me energized. And whatever that is for you, it's like just do those things.
I was gonna ask you, what would be the first step someone could take if they want to
Yeah,
improve,
that's it.
like reclaim
That's
their
it.
power? Just listen to your inner voice. Yeah,
Inner
that's it.
voice. Listen to
Yeah,
your inner voice and then, focus a little bit on owning your mindset, and just owning your mood, you know? Stop letting kind of life happen to you and be in control, so when life happens to you, it doesn't knock you down. Yeah, you can
yeah,
still maintain a frequency and honor that something is hard, honor that something makes you feel sad. You can honor those feelings without letting them bring you down.
yeah, exactly. Life is not perfect. As long as you have the tools, right? We have the tools now, so
Yeah.
to meditation and yeah, getting our vibration high. I mean, from the beginning of the day, I try to do that because you never know what's gonna happen during the day.
Yeah.
So great. Thank you very much for a great conversation. Do you want to add something? Maybe I didn't ask, maybe about your program. Is it like a few weeks or a few months program when people sign up with you?
It's a custom, it's very specific. I have offerings that are kind of just a 2-hour deep dive if you feel like there's just maybe a specific thing you're stuck on and you just want a little motivation to kinda get you past that, and then there's thing packages where there's, 3 and 6-month packages. I also do, speaking, so for corporations, speaking at conferences and team meetings to help with different versions, variations of kind of change management or helping people tap into their personal power at work.
Yeah.
Essentially, my framework very much can be applied to whether it's you're at a crossroad for a personal relationship, or if you're at a crossroad at work, it can very much be kind of translated into whatever type of crossroads that might be. So those are kind of the things that I'm focused on for work. And then we kind of mentioned earlier, I host a podcast myself
Hmm.
called Becoming is Messy.
Yeah. I love the
Yeah,
name.
and that to me, I believe that my purpose in life is to normalize talking about all of the messy. I think that it's held us all back and made us hold on to shame because we've made it shameful to talk about the messy parts of our paths, and I wanna free us of that, and so on my podcast, we talk about all of the twists and turns of our journeys, the good, the bad, the messy, and then the last thing I would add, since we've talked about my framework, the first 8 episodes of the Becoming is Messy podcast, I cover a deep dive of every part of the level up framework. And so,
Okay.
for free, people can go out and just listen to those episodes. If they want just a little bit of a crash course, of course, I'm happy to help folks beyond that go deeper with their path. But in the meantime, if they want just a kind of a quick hit lesson, they can check out those episodes and get tools that can help them right away.
That's great. Okay, I will put all the information in the show notes so people
Thank
can
you.
see where they can connect with you. And also, I will put also your social media there, if you want, they want to check you out. Well, thank you very
Perfect.
much, Megan. Stay cozy and warm in Wisconsin, where you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I know.
It's
I'm
cold right
jealous
now.
of you out in California, but
It's
enjoy
cold too.
enjoy your little bit of enjoy your gentle breeze out there. It's so
You
nice
know.
to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.